So I call my science journey the Great March East, which for German is a very weird thing to say.
Yeah. Getting to know your science journey so far. So, how did you end up in Melbourne being a beamline scientist at the Science Donut? And for people who are just listening to the long podcast, if you want to know what a Science Donut is, refer to the short podcast or stay with us on the long podcast. Okay, Susie, there you go.
Right. So I call my science journey the Great March East, which for German is a very weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Let's start at the basics. So I was a scientist probably as long as I can remember, and my parents will tell you that because I could never stop asking why, and I had to always know something. So far that my parents ran out of ideas and my dad just made up stuff, which is not helpful but funny. Anyway, I studied chemistry, actually polymer science, in a really small town in Bavaria called Bayreuth. Classical music fans know that, from Wagner. So it's the city of Wagner. It's a city in Germany, in Australia.
It's a company or something?
Yeah. It's
right?
Yep.
Okay, so go on.
So yeah, Bayreuth in Germany, if you read it as an English-speaking person, not Beirut in Lebanon. And during the first year of my PhD, so I did my bachelor's there, I did my master's there, as you do in Germany, and then I started my PhD. And during the first year, my supervisor gave me the chance to do a 3-month stay funded by the DAAD in Melbourne, Australia, because he had a collaboration there, and my topic was, quite fitting for it. So I went there, and I really enjoyed that. Fortunately for me, during the time, my supervisor was also on sabbatical in Australia, and was there to set up a so-called DAAD thematic network in polymer science, actually. And part of that was creating a so-called joint PhD. So basically you spend half your time in Germany, half your time in Australia, and in the end graduate from both universities. And because I was already there, had a really great time and did apparently some really nice research, he offered me to do that. Saying that he offered me to do that is he invited me out for dinner. We had a glass of red wine, and then he asked if I'm going to do it while it was like a 35-degree night in Melbourne, and I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we did it, and yeah. Doesn't need much convincing when you have that setting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I spent basically my PhD flying back and forth between Germany and Australia, explaining one topic of my PhD to the other supervisor and back, because my German supervisor was very big in macrofluidics and X-ray scattering, and then my Australian supervisor really big into the nano world, and they were very far apart from each other, as I learned, but that's okay. I combined them, got a PhD out of it. It was great. After that, during that, I kind of realized that life in Australia suits me better than in Germany, and lived there for a long time, so maybe it was time for a change. So I moved on to be the so-called gateway office manager for my German university, Uni Bayreuth, based at the Uni Melbourne, and managed their international affairs in Australia and New Zealand. So I basically set up, collaborations with unis. I strengthened the connections. I helped them write funding grants and applications for international joint projects. Mm-hmm. Before I moved on to do a postdoc fellowship in renewable energies at RMIT University. So we're slowly making our way further east within Melbourne. And then from there I got headhunted to be a beamline scientist, mainly because I used the beamline during my PhD, and the team, apparently I left a really good impression with them. So we stayed in contact afterwards, and we got along really well, and they had a position open, and then they were like, hey, how about you? And I was like, hey, I like that. And so I ended up at a Science Donut, and here I am.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, do visit our website, thesciencetalk.com, and do consider giving us a review or a rating or follow, depending on wherever you're consuming this content. Thank you very much.